As we mentioned yesterday, up here on the far west side of the fire, we did release the evacuation orders for Bighorn Park subdivision, and so that area does remain back in pre-evacuation status. That actually worked out really well. You probably saw our deputies and the fire department up there cruising around, and everything seems to be going very well up there from what I'm hearing from my teams in the field. So good news over there. As we move over here to the east side of the fire, you have the Highway 125 corridor. As we've mentioned the last couple nights, that still remains closed from the bottom here all the way up to mile marker 27 at the top, which our county line, just for reference, is mile marker 22. And so we know that that's a long closure in there, but it's really helping let those fire trucks get up there, let those firefighters get up there and assess those situations. And also it's about that planning process of actually making sure we clean out these things ahead of time so that our crews can work. So on the west side of the fire, or excuse me, on the west side of 125 right here, from mile marker 5 about where my pin is, all the way up to the 27 on the west side of the road, all those residences in there are still under evacuation order. That also applies for the east side of 125 from mile marker 5 all the way up to the county line. So all of these residents on both sides of there, I know you've been out for a couple days. I understand that. We talked about reassessing that tomorrow afternoon, and we'll do that. We were hoping for something exciting like snow or something like that. We don't have it yet, but hopefully we can at least have this discussion here tomorrow and provide you the next update. But we are watching that very closely. Many of the questions that I get just as a sheriff is, has this fire jumped 125? And I'm going to give you the very short sheriff answer, and then I'll certainly let Jay talk about it. But for those of you monitoring us, the fire has not jumped 125. We're watching that very, very closely, and so we're aware of that, and you homeowners along these areas right there. Obviously, lots of smoke, lots of activity, lots of aircraft down here in the hot Sulphur Springs area along the Highway 40 corridor today. You probably saw a lot of our deputies around there too. I really asked those deputies to get out into the field and talk to you guys today. Be around, have that calming effect on our community. This fire and activity is super close to town, but it's also being monitored by true professionals in the fire field. They're watching every movement of these things as they happen, and they're making the best decisions for you guys. And they're working with us locally to make sure that we're well aware of that as well. So I got the chance to spend a little bit of time up in the Sheriff Creek area today, really looking into that. We're aware of the things that's going on in those areas. The smoke that you see, there next to town, obviously as it gets dark, you see, some of the flames and the glow and stuff like that. But I want to have you rest assured that even though that appears to be close to town, as you get up there, there is some room between where the town limits are. So no pre-evacuation, no evacuation orders in place in the hot Sulphur Springs area. For those of you that are familiar with the Drowsy Water area, Kinney Creek area and stuff like that, we did do an evacuation order in the Drowsy Park or Drowsy Water area today. That affected the ranch plus about 3 or 4 houses in there. And we are working on clearing out an evacuation area a little bit further to the east, and then those houses right up here on that mile marker 0 to mile marker 5 portion of 125. Just planning ahead. No immediate threats in this area right here, but we just want to make sure we stay ahead of that curve. So I'm going to pass it off to Jay. Thanks for joining us, and I'll be back for questions.
Good evening, Jay Winfield, Incident Commander, Northern Rockies Team 6. Thanks again for your attention tonight. We'll give you a quick briefing on both fires, very quick on the Williamsport fire, and I will start with that one. So on the left here, our main concern is this north spot here on this fire. It pokes around, it's really backing down Upson Creek and then running to the top of the ridge, approaching or closing in on this Kaiser Creek area. How we're dealing with that, it's really snag infested, a lot of dead down, heavy lodgepole in there with spruce and subalpine fir. So we're using heavy helicopters early in the morning to somewhat subdue that activity. The other side, southeast side of the fire, we continue to do point protection down there on some structures, and that's going really well, raising the humidity with pumps and sprinklers, and that's going very well. Total acreage on that one is 14,645 acres. We're at 26% containment. This flank here is tied up in the rocks and sparse fuel, so we'll mainly monitor that north end. Moving on to the East Troublesome fire. A lot of you have probably seen a lot of smoke today, and we had a lot of activity today. Acreage on this fire as of last night's infrared flight was 15,565 acres. We know it grew substantially today. We're waiting on some MMA flights to kind of shore up that perimeter, but we're estimating 1,000 to 1,500 acres in growth. So as I've started, I'll be consistent with the previous nights. We'll start over here on the heel of the fire. Activity over there picked up again today. We are still feeling very confident in the line we've built over here, protecting the Bighorn Park subdivision. We had crews in there today. We actually dropped a load of retardant in there to reinforce some dozer line and hand line. That's looking pretty good. Moving around south of the fire, Division Romeo, this is where we had a lot of trouble today. And it all started with a wind switch last night that pooched this fire out of our containment lines and built up energy and began moving east. That column that it built up yesterday evening laid over to the east and dropped a bunch of spots out to the east. And that's what we tried to pick up this morning. This morning's activity was pretty intense and it was fairly early. You saw columns of smoke both on this side of the fire, southeast side, as well as the north side of the fire around 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning. And it's been pretty active ever since. However, in the last hour, a lot of that activity, based on reports from the field, has subdued a little bit. So we're thankful of that. So based on the actions here on the south flank of the fire, we utilized heavy air tankers, load and return. Many times today we had 5 helicopters, 4 heavies and 2 and 1 medium, working a lot of these spots north of the Grouse Mountain communication site, as well as to the east of that. We also tried to work off of this line here, but this morning we could not get in front of the spots that were out here, so we began improving this road down to the southeast. Our intention there is to keep that fire down in here, as well as come across and tie into an open ridge here paralleling Highway 125, excuse me. A lot of you are concerned about this section of the fire up here, and we have equal concerns. However, there is a good from today's activity, and these 2 columns produced enough smoke to shade this side of the fire out, which really reduced the solar radiation on the fire, so it's been much less active today. Still moving, but less active. It is now within a mile to a mile and a quarter west of Highway 125. We've got folks there, structure group folks are in there assessing that, assessing the structures along 125. We feel pretty comfortable with that. I believe that's a pretty quick summation of what's going on today there. Any questions?
We do have questions. Can you update information on the cabin structures on County Road 204?
Brett, you're going to have to help me about County Road 204.
I think that's the Kenny Creek or Sheriff Creek area over
Okay.
there.
Kenny Creek, again, as I explained earlier, we did have some activity in here. I can't tell you what happened in there right now. I'll have a better update tonight. We do know fire has moved across that Kenny Creek Road in there. I can tell you that.
What is the impact on the Lazy Sea Ranch, Lazy U Ranch?
That question will be for Brett.
All right, we will hold that for the sheriff. Next one is for you to, what about hot sulfur springs?
That question should be for Brett also.
Ready? And let's see here. Are there any structures lost in Sheriff's Creek drainage? And again.
That's Brett's question.
Okay.
Why don't you start over with those questions, Penny, and
Yeah.
I'll just answer them one by one.
Absolutely. Please update on the cabin structures on County Road 204.
So obviously the fire is north of Highway 40 there. We won't, as Jay mentioned, we won't actually have answers until the crews get back into the field and a lot of that smoke gets cleared out of there and stuff. So it's just premature to answer that question. And I want to make sure that we give you full transparency and full honesty when we give an answer. And we just need to wait and see what that is.
Next one is, what's the impact of the Sea Lazy U Ranch?
So the Sea Lazy U Ranch, just for reference on the map, is basically over here on the east side of 125. I've been speaking with the management at the ranch every day. That ranch does remain in pre-evacuation status. And so we're just monitoring that just like we are with the rest of all these homeowners along this corridor in there.
Let's see here. How far south did the fire move on Ute Bill Creek drainage?
So I'll probably pass that back to Jay if he knows that. We might not actually know that until the crews get back into the field. But the Ute Creek drainage is basically kind of right in this area as well, right here. So we might not actually know that until.
So the fire has moved south from Forest Service jurisdiction into the BLM. We have been able to hold it up right here at the head end of these roads. And we're trying to construct line around that right now as we continue to punch line to the east. So it is on BLM. I believe that section might be section 15.
How far south did the fire move on Ute Bill Creek drainage?
Just answered that.
Oh, did we? Sorry. What's the forecast? What's tomorrow's forecast indicate for teams and the fire?
Well, very similar pattern as today, and we're on the borderline of a red flag warning. And what that means is low RH, high winds, basically, and somewhere in the neighborhood of a Haines of 4, maybe as high as a Haines of 5, which means we can expect significant spread and very active fire behavior. Those winds are projected to be out of the southwest, then funneling northwest, from the northwest.
What are they doing to protect structures along Colorado 125?
Assessing those, we have a structure protection group up in there. We're assessing those structures, hauling equipment up there, basically pumps and sprinkler systems. As I said previous nights, we do not sprinkler structures themselves. We prep the area around those private lands, and we try and protect the fire from getting to those private lands and structures.
What's the general outlook for fighting this fire?
Well, we do have some good news in the future, and that is some predicted precip, and that can come in the way of snow is what the prediction is. The meteorologist is talking about possibly more than a half an inch of snow, or half an inch of precip, which equates to 4 to 6 inches of snow, and that can be coming by this weekend. So our goal really here is to continue to reinforce our lines and move as the fire moves. We've got several other alternatives, but really we've got an incoming team. We time out in a couple days, and our hope is we continue to hold it within our containment lines until we get some of that favorable weather in the way of precip, which will aid firefighters in the activities and operations out there on the line.
And this next one is for the sheriff.
So we're getting a lot of questions once again just about the hot Sulphur Springs area. And I know there was a lot of smoke there, a lot of fire up on the hillside. I just wanted to really reiterate to you guys in Hot Sulphur here before we close out. Hot Sulphur's down here. Obviously, the fire is up here. These maps that we're looking at have things pretty well expanded up there. They're really watching this side very closely, as Jay's alluded to and I've talked about. And so just know that if things do change, we'll be in contact with you. We always rely on the code red notification system. That's not expected. Things can change, but we will be in touch with you if anything does change. So just know that the county incident management team, emergency management, sheriff's office, everybody is watching this very closely. So you guys are not going unheard of in that Grand Lake or that Hot Sulphur Springs area. So we're watching those things very closely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for attending the meeting tonight. Like I said, please continue to ask your questions, and information officer will get back to you. And I just wanted to take just a little bit of time to thank so many people that have offered up their gratitude, their thanks to the firefighters out there. Believe me, that means a lot. They're tired. They've been working a long time this year. So just thank you very much. And we always pass along your comments to the firefighters when we can. That does it for tonight. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.